So this is a question I got for section 1.3 homework, question number 12. And basically we're writing a quadratic function in its vertex form. And it says to find the intercepts, that's x and y intercepts, the vertex location, determine whether the vertex is a maximum or a minimum, and then the range of the graph. So we see that we have standard form here. And to change this into vertex form, we're going to factor out this -3 from the two terms that have x in it. So let's do that first. So when you factor out -3, you're dividing each of these terms by -3. And we see the first one becomes x squared. The second one is -18 divided by -3, so that's +6. There is an x next to that term. And now we're going to put our placeholder, because we're going to use completing the square to factor this. And then our -25 is outside of those parentheses. Next, to complete the square, we have to take 1/2 of the linear term, so half of 6, and then square it. This gives us 3 squared, which is 9. And we've changed the equation. So whenever you change the equation, you have to balance it. But we have to understand we changed it by -3 times 9. So we changed it by a -27. We have to now add 27 to balance it. And when we do that, we can combine the two constants, the -25 and the +27, become a +2. Now, completing the square creates what is known as a perfect square trinomial. And perfect square trinomials are very easy to factor. That is why we use completing the square. We are forcing a condition that is easy to work with. And to factor it, you take the square root of the front term, which is x. You take the sign from the middle term, which is a plus, and the square root of the back term, which is 3. Put that all in parentheses and square it. And this is only true for perfect square trinomials. We put our -3 multiplier out front, our +2 behind it, and now we've accomplished our first task, and that is to write the vertex form of the equation. Now, vertex form, just to recall, is f of x equals a times x minus h in parentheses squared plus k. So from this, we now know that our a is -3. Our h has to be in minus form, so we change this to a minus -3 so that it matches the +3. So h is equal to -3 and k is equal to 2. So I'm just going to rewrite the vertex form here. And the first thing it wants us to solve for are the intercepts. Well, I can use this original equation to help me with the y-intercept. So to find the y-intercept, you plug in 0 for x. If we plug in 0 to these first two terms, they cancel, and we have a -25. To find the x-intercepts, we plug in 0 for y. I'm going to use the vertex form to help me with this. So we have 0 equals -3, and then parentheses x plus 3 squared plus 2. And now you solve this for x. We can begin by subtracting 2 from both sides. And then we would like to divide both sides by -3. A negative divided by a negative gives us a +2/3 equals x plus 3 in parentheses squared. Now we would like to get rid of the exponent, so we take the square root of both sides. When we introduce the square root, we have to put a plus and minus there. So now we have plus or minus the square root of 2/3 equals x plus 3. And finally, to get x by itself, we'll subtract 3 from both sides. So we have x is equal to -3 plus or minus the square root of 2/3. And we can enter this into our calculator to get a decimal. The My Math Lab homework asks for a decimal answer for this. So -3 plus the square root of 2/3 gives us x is equal to -2.18. And I'll put a little subscript of 1, and then we'll do our second x. And to do this, we'll subtract the square root of 2/3. And we get -3.81. So we've got our x-intercepts here, our y-intercept here. Let's move on to the next question. Find the vertex. We already found that the vertex, which is equal to hk, is -3, 2. So that one was easy. Is this a maximum or a minimum? Because our a value was -3. This means the graph opens down, and the vertex would be here, which means that we have a maximum. If it asks you what is the maximum, well, the vertex is at -3, 2, and the maximum would be the y-coordinate, because that's what describes going up or down, the y-axis. So max of y equal to 2. And the range, so if we have -3, 2 as our vertex and it opens down, we see that we have a maximum of 2 on the y-axis, so that's the range. Range is the set of y values that go from -infinity to 2, and 2 is included, -infinity is not, or you can say y less than or equal to 2. Both are correct.